Hey, it's been a minute, and modding for Space Marine 2 has come a long way since my last tutorial, so I'm here to update it. In this video, I'm going to go over pretty much every modding tool that we've been given access to, including Index, Integration Studio, the Model Converter. I'll also cover some of the basics of modding, just to give you an idea of what's possible and what's not, and I'll chapter this video so you can bounce around, because I don't know how long it's going to be. Let's just jump right into it, starting with Alright, let's go over the basics of modding. Space Marine 2 runs on Saber Interactive's signature Horde engine. It's how they get so many enemies on screen at a time without your PC dying. Space Marine 2 also uses Saber's very own personal programming language called Saber Scripting Language, or SSL. These code files are then packaged into the game as SSL bin files. We can't edit SSL bin files at all, so we can't directly interact with the code and change it or add new stuff. We can't do that. If we were somehow ever able to edit SSL bin files, then something very wrong would have happened, because we would have had our hands on a tool that we shouldn't have access to. We cannot add new animations to Space Marine 2, and we can't edit the existing ones. We can do a little bit of manipulation and combine certain ones together because of the way that animations work, but it's really not the best. We can, however, interact with the code using property formatted files. These files come in the format of SSOs and CLS files. You can also add custom models to the game in the form of characters, armor, weapons, geometry, and you can make custom textures and materials. The main file that you're going to be editing by far, hands down without a doubt, is the default other.pack. You can absolutely open pretty much any of these packs down here, except for the SSL pack, because that has the SSL bin files in it. So, I mean, you can open it, but you can't mess with it. But you can edit it, like, these are the video packs, here's some TPL packs, here's some sound packs, PCT packs. But by far, it's going to be just the default other pack that you're going to be messing with, and you'll see why in a minute. Alright. The first thing I'm going to go over is how to install Integration Studio. But first we have to know what Integration Studio is. What does it do? Well, Integration Studio is a file managing software. It's a very light version of the program that the devs at Saber use to actually create their games, which opens up a ton of doors for us as modders. Integration Studio lets us easily edit SSO and CLS files in a space where properties that wouldn't normally be visible in text format are there for us clear as day to mess around with. Integration Studio is listed in a variety of different places. It's on Steam, it's on our Discord server, and it's on the official Pros website. I'm going to download it from Pros, and I'll leave a link in the description to the download page. On Pros, Integration Studio is called Modding Toolset for Space Marine 2, and to actually download it, you have to be signed in, so you can log in with Google, or I think with Discord was the other option. Once you're logged in, this little section here, Releases, will be able to pop down, and you can click Download right here. We're on patch 10.3 right now, but 11.0 is just around the corner, and this gets updated with every major update. I'm going to click here. It should automatically download the file onto your computer. Once the file is downloaded onto your computer, open it and extract its contents to your downloads folder. Once extracted, open the folder. Integration Studio comes packaged with the Model Converter, which, if you open the folder, has a bunch of different tools all dedicated to making sure that converting 3D models gets done correctly. All of these tools are very useful, and I'm going to go over most of them later in the video. For now, we would just want to go back and open the mod editor folder. Inside the mod editor folder, you'll see the mod source folder, the tools folder, the PRG ENV folder, a PDF, a TXT, and a .project folder. We're going to copy just about everything except the PDF. We're going to copy, and then we're going to go find our Space Marine 2 directory. For me, since I own the game on Steam, I'm going to come to Steam, and I'm going to right-click on the game, and go to Manage, Browse Local Files. The place where you're going to put these files that we have copied is in Client PC, Root. It's going to go right in this area. So we're just going to click, and we're going to paste, and there we go. Technically, now Integration Studio is installed, but there's a little more we have to do to get it to work. Okay, so now that Integration Studio is installed, there's a little bit of setup we have to do in order for us to start editing the files. we don't actually have any of the files yet, so we have to go get them and extract them. Remember default other pack from earlier? This is where that comes in. There is a default other pack in both sides of the game, meaning in client PC and server PC. We're going to need both of them. Let's start with client PC. We're going to open up client PC. We're going to go to root, packs, client, and default. Okay, there it is, right there. We don't need the cache file, we just need this. So, copy it, and let's go back to Space Marine 2, go into our client PC, root, and then our mod source folder, which is a folder that we just made. Inside that folder, you'll see an SSL folder, don't worry about it, we're going to paste our default other pack there. Okay. Now that default other is in our mod source folder, we need to extract its contents. So we're going to open it up with an archiving tool. I'm going to use WinRAR. I'll leave a link in the description to WinRAR, but you can also use 7-zip or any other archiving tool that you prefer. Inside, we can see that there are these folders. This is the client side, so there's an SSL, a UI, an Xscenes, and then there's these 3 folders up here. We're going to extract all of this to this file space here. So it's going to come out in the default other folder. Alright, now that it's extracted, let's double check our folder. We open default other and it's got all of those folders here. So we're doing great so far. Now we're going to go get the server side version of default other. So we're going to go back to Space Marine 2. We're going to open up server PC, root, packs, server, default. So kind of the same location as in the client one, but with a few name changes. We're going to grab the default other pack right here, same as before. Do not grab the cache file, just the pack. And we're going to copy it. And we're going to go all the way back to our mod source folder, which is in client PC, root, mod source. Okay, we already have this file here, so we're going to delete it. And we're going to paste this in. And then we're going to open it. And now you're going to see that there's only 3 folders here. Xscenes, SSL, and the MTL mutators. We're going to grab them all, and we're going to extract right to this area. This is where you're going to get a pop-up that says that the following files already exist. A majority of the files inside of both of the default other packs are identical. So there's a version of whatever the file is on the client side and a version of whatever it is on the server side. That's how most of the files are, and that's what we're looking at here. It's asking us to replace those. When you make a mod, you only need one version. The game will automatically know exactly where to put it on both sides, both client and server side. However, the reason why we're doing this is because there are files in the server side that are not in the client side, and there are files in the client side that are not in the server side. So not all of the files are duplicated or identical, just most of them. So, because we only need one version of the files for our mod, plus the stuff that's in one side and not the other, we're just going to either replace or skip all of them. And because I've only got the option to replace, I'm just going to say yes. Never mind, I'm just going to say yes to all, because that's all of them. Okay, now when we come in here, it should look more or less the same, but as long as you made sure that you extracted all 3 of these folders, you're in tip-top shape. The last thing to do is to open up default other, select all of these, cut them, come back to mod source, and paste them in this blank area, like so. Okay, now that all of our files are actually in the correct folder, which again is the mod source folder, so your path should look like Space Marine 2, client PC, root, mod source, and then all of your folders here, okay? Now we can delete the default other pack, and we're going to double check the default other folder. It's empty, so we're going to delete it. Now we have Integration Studio installed, and we're going to figure out how to open it. Integration Studio's exe is located in client PC, root, tools, mod editor. And it's right at the top here, integrationstudio.exe. We're going to pin that to our taskbar, like that, and then we are going to start the program. It's going to pop up this, just say more info and run anyway. I promise it's not a virus. Integration Studio is now open, but it's really tiny, so we're going to make it pretty big. There we go. On the side here, you can see that we have our files that we saw in the mod source folder. The default other pack has all of the SSO files and CLS files in the entire game. So these are all of the files that you can actually edit with Integration Studio. There aren't any more files than what is available here that we can edit with Integration Studio. Everything else you have to use a text editor for, or some other program like Photoshop or Blender or whatever, right? Because they're either 3D files or text files or image files. But these are the SSO files that we can edit. Let's put our focus onto the content browser. That's over here on this side. That's where all our files are. You have your favorites, your recents, and your mod source folder, which is where all of the files are hanging out at. With Integration Studio, I'm going to show you how to make 3 different mods. One is going to be editing an SSO, one is going to be editing a CLS, and the other is going to be making a blueprint. Okay? We're going to start with the SSO mod. We're going to open up SSL, and then we're going to scroll down until we find main, and then we're going to open up game modes, descriptions, and we're going to double click on game mode description library. This file is what determines how many players and bots can be in a lobby in each game mode. This is not how you enable more than 3 players to be able to join a mission, but it is one step in that process. We're just going to increase the amount of bots that are going to join us on the mission. Right now we have everything is collapsed, so we're going to uncollapse description, and we can see here's the hub, which is the battle barge, the story mode, the PvE modes, and then the PvP, the different PvP stuffs, and then here's Horde mode down here. We are going to increase the amount of players in PvE from 3 to 6. And then we can go down here and we can do it to Horde mode as well, right? Max players count, max team size to start game. Those are both turned to 6. There are a bunch of other interesting things here that you can mess with, and I implore you to explore them and work with them on your own time. But for the time being, I'm only going to focus on what I'm teaching you, and it's just going to be a quick, simple, easy thing. We have now increased the characters to 6 on both PvE, which is operations, and Horde mode, which is siege mode. We're going to save the file, and we are going to open the file in our file explorer. So we're going to come over here where it says game mode description library, and we're going to right click, and we're going to click show in explorer. It's going to open it up where it is. This is what makes Integration Studio so awesome. You can see here that our game mode description library is sitting here, but it's also got a thing called game mode description library.resource. Resource files are super important, and Integration Studio generates them perfectly automatically whenever you save a file. It's not gonna be super important for this specific mod, but for a lot of things down the line, if you get more advanced with stuff, resource files are gonna be a lifesaver for a lot of different situations. And if they're incomplete, something might not work, it might break, it might crash, and it's just always a good idea to make sure your resource files are checked up. And so if you're not sure if a file needs a resource file or not, you might as well just grab it. So we're gonna grab both of these, and we're gonna copy them to our clipboard. This is the local folder. It is located in Client PC, Root, Local. This is where you, as a mod creator, are going to build and create your mods. Using this folder, we only need to include what files we actually made changes to and nothing more. But the files need to be in the right location for the game to read them. For example, we just edited the game mode description library, right? So, what we need to do in order to put it in here and make it work is we need to go back and we need to look at the pathing to it, right? So we're going to start at game mode description library, and we're going to look descriptions, game modes, game, main, SSL, mod source. And so we're going to pretend that mod source is the local folder, okay? And I'm going to split my screen so it's easier to see. If we follow the path to the file, we have to start with SSL. So we're going to make a new folder in the local folder and call it SSL. And then we're going to open the SSL folder, and we're going to go down, and the next folder is main. And so we're going to make a new folder, and we're going to call it main. And then we're going to open that folder, and inside that one, we're going to make a new folder and call it game. Then we're going to open it, We're going to make another folder, and we're going to call that one Game_Modes. And then we're going to open that one, and we're going to call that one DESCS. And finally, now that we're in the DSCS folder, the descriptions folder, we can paste our two files. Whenever you're making a mod, the files that you put in your local folder have to be pathed to the exact location. So SSL, main, game modes, descriptions, and then that's where the file goes, right? You'd have to do that for anything, anywhere. Just make sure the path is correct, and it needs to be exact. So the names need to be perfect. You can't misspell anything or use a space instead of an underscore. It has to be exact, right? And once it's there, because we have file path and it's local SSL, main, game modes, descriptions, and here's our two files, we can come over to Steam or Epic or wherever, and you can press play on the game. Alright, this is where we hit the first hurdle. If your game didn't crash when you hit the start button and you got to this page, we're going to press the enter key, and it should pop up as corrupted files detected. That's a good thing. It just means that there's mods installed. I know it's scary because it says corrupted files, but it's just that the mods are installed. They just reuse the same message for if there's something wrong in the game. There really isn't a time, unless you seriously mess up your game, like doing something normally without modding it, that you're going to have this issue. You're not going to corrupt your files just by modding the game, I promise. So anytime, unless you've been messing with the game files in a way that isn't to mod them, anytime the corrupted files detected message shows up, it means that you have mods installed. And you can double check that because in the top corner up here, you'll see a little UI thing that says mods detected. Alright, so we're good. We can keep going. One thing that you might get stuck on is that message might not come up, and you might just see the little loading double eagle, and you won't be signed in at the top, and that means your mod's not working. You're probably something wrong with your resource file or with the file itself. Just go back, redo it in Integration Studio, make sure you follow what I said, and just be very meticulous about the pathing and whatever, and try again. If you got to the menu screen and you're on this page now, we can just hit continue. Alright, in this menu we're going to hit a couple other hurdles. The few that might be is you might crash while it's loading, the loading bar might get stuck at loading resources or loading game logic, or it might get to loading game logic and then send you back to the main menu. Those are the three common crashes and the three common crash points. If any of that happens, just go back and redo the mod. It's very simple. Just relax, breathe, just follow the tutorial very carefully. If you load it up properly into the game, then we're all good. Now that we're in the modded game, right, we're in the modded game state, when you go into the mission select, you need to turn bots on, because for whatever reason, they're not on by default when you're in a modded game. Alright, but what we've done, the mod that we've created, should increase the bot count from 2 to 5, so we should have 6 total Marines in the level. And if I load in here, we should see that if we turn around, yep, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's one of each class in the game, all in our little lobby here. And you can see their health in there, and they all work just fine. There's nothing else. They're just, just more bots. If at any point along the way you crashed while doing that, you need to just go back, breathe, and follow the tutorial. But if it did work, then congratulations. You've made your first mod. This is your first mod. You can claim it as your own. And we're good to go on to the next tutorial. In case you were wondering, the difference between an SSO and a CLS is what they represent. An SSO file represents the game, what the game is doing, how it's interacting with things. A CLS file is representing a character or an actor, so like the player, a bot, an enemy, a weapon, a specific piece of geometry like the explosive barrels. These are all actors, characters, and the CLS file represents how they are behaving and interacting with the world and other actors. We are going to be editing the CLS file for Titus and making him really big. To do that, we need to come over into our content browser, and we can type in the filter up here the word Titus. And there we go. There's all of the files for Titus in the story. Right now, what we need is PC Marine PvE Story Titus client.cls and authority.cls. For playable characters like this, if you want to do anything to the visuals of the character, you have to do it to both of these files, just for continuity's sake. The client file will be what other people will see when you're playing as that character, and the authority file will be what you see when you're playing as that character. And so, if you want things to match, you gotta do it to both. So we're gonna do it to both. Open up the client side first. In this area here, because I don't want to look through the whole thing, we are going to, at the top, type the word geometry and hit enter. And there we go. There is the geometry section for Titus. You can see it uses the template cc_Titus, has a scale of 1, and a bunch of these other things that are not enabled or turned on or messed with at all. So we're going to leave the template as cc_Titus, and we are going to change the scale to like 5. You can also do 3D scale. So if we wanted him to be really like wide, I guess that would be this one. If we want to be 2 times wide. This is multiplication, not addition. So this is 5 times as big, 2 times as wide, and this is X, Y, Z. So if we wanted him to be short and stout, we can do 0.5. So now he's half as tall. We don't need to mess with. That's like the other direction back and forth. Now we come up here, we right click, and we click save. And now we're going to do those exact same edits to the authority file. So we're going to come up here and we're going to type geometry, and we're going to look for the Titus one, change this to 5, this to 2, and this to 0.5. Then we're going to save. Okay, now we need to path the file to our local folder, and I'm going to let you guys do it on your own this time. And now when we start our game, the character should be massive, but also funny looking. Alright, once again, corrupted files detected is a good thing. Your game is fine. It just means that mods are installed. We're going to hit OK, and we're going to hit continue. Remember, if you hit any of these hurdles, just go back, be patient, just don't panic, follow the instructions, make sure your resource files are fine, make sure you've done the correct edits, make sure the things are aligned in both sides, so both client and authority. Don't panic if it crashes, okay? Alright, I'm going to quickly go to campaign. And there we go. There is our massive Titus. Let's see if we can get him in frame here. There he is. He's a little big, but that's him, okay. And it looks like we extended in the wrong direction. So X looks like it's front and back. Z looks like it's sideways. Alright, there we go. I went back and I changed the 3D scale all to 1. There's our big Titus. There he is. I might use this as the thumbnail of the video. But there is our battle barge sized Titus. Alright, let's continue. Blueprints are scary. They are probably one of the most complex ways of modding, but using them can open the doors to so many things it's not even funny. It's basically the closest we can get to messing around with the actual code. Maybe it's just me, okay? But I've been modding for a year, and I still haven't wrapped my head completely around how to use them. And I've really only seen one person completely grasp the concept of how they work. Admittingly, I'm stealing this tutorial from the PDF that comes with Integration Studio, but even if I don't understand it, I'm showing it off in the hopes that one of you will see the potential and take the time to dedicate yourselves to learning it. We are going to do something called dynamic scaling, where every 1 second the character will move from large to small, or from small to large. To do this, we are going to look at the parent file for the authority side Titus file. Every file has a parent shown at the very top of the file in Integration Studio. This parent file is the file that most of the file that you're currently looking at inherits its data from. Anything that's grayed out instead of bolded is either a default value or a value that it's inheriting from its parent file. We want to follow PC Marine PVE Story Titus Authority.cls as far back as we can go. So we want to find PC Marine Story Authority. PC Marine Story Authority. Down here. There it is. We want to find PC Marine PVE Authority. So we're going to find PVE Authority, because it inherits from PVE Authority. It's again at the very bottom. This inherits from PC Marine Base Authority. So we're gonna change this to base. And it's the only file there. Here is PC Marine Base Authority, and it inherits from Player Character Authority. Now we're in Player Character Authority, and the farthest back that we can go is Net Actor Client, but we don't need to go that far back. That's the Net Actor Client is the last step, and it just is defining. It'll be an empty thing. It's just defining what type of file this is. As we can see, there is not a blueprint section in this file, so this is not the correct file that we need. So we're going to go one back into Base Authority. We're going to look for the blueprint section. Alright, there it is. Now we're going to create a new blueprint using this plus button here under Prop Blueprint. We're going to click on Blueprint Client, and we're going to click Apply. We're going to name it something practical like Dynamic Scale, and then we're going to expand it. We don't need to worry about nodes or is active while visible, but we do need to worry about the variable section because we need to create a variable to call later in our blueprint. So we're going to click this plus over here under variables, and we're going to search for a bool. This is a Boolean value. This is just a true or false value. We're going to call it is big for this specific one, and we're going to leave it unticked, which means that it is going to be set to false when it starts. So ticking it is true, unticking it is false. Now we're going to open dynamic scale up here with this. We're going to right click and we're going to create an on init node. We're going to double click, and oh my god, that is so outrageously small. Okay, there's the onInit node. This basically means that when the character is created, when it's initiated, when it starts existing, this blueprint will do something. We're going to create a new node called schedule, and we're going to connect these pins together. So now when the character is initiated, the schedule node will set up a repeating sequence that once it's connected, it will run whatever node is pinned here every whatever predetermined seconds. Currently it's set to 1, which is perfect because that's what we want, and we're going to add a way for this to stop. We're going to right click and we're going to do on terminate, and we're going to connect it to the stop function. So now whenever the character stops existing, when it dies, whatever, it will stop doing this schedule. Now we want to tell it what we want it to do every 1 second. So we're going to add an if flow gate. So that's if, it's an if node. We need to scroll down until we find flow control. It's the flow control if. And we're going to connect on period to if. Now that we have our if gate set up, we're going to add a way to call the variable. So we need something for the if gate to check. So we're going to add a get BP variable. There we go. Get BP variable node. Alright, we're going to connect it to the condition like that. We're going to press these 3 dots, which is another reason why Integration Studio is so nice. It has this link browser. You can find it in a bunch of different places for a bunch of different things, and if you set it up correctly, it should pull up a whole bunch of stuff and dynamically update if you add new things here. But we're going to click on is big, and now we have the Boolean. So now, whenever the character is created or starts existing, it will start a loop every second that looks to see if the variable is big is true or false. And so now we're going to tell it what we want it to do, which is to make the character bigger. So we're going to set geom scale. There we go. And we're going to connect this one to true, and we're going to change the uniform scale to 0.5. Now every time the character is created, every 1 second, it will look to see if the variable is big is set to true or false, and if it's set to true, it will set the owner of this blueprint, so any person inheriting PC Marine Base Authority, to 0.5 its original scale. And now we're going to add another one of these, and we're going to connect it to false, and we're going to set the uniform scale to 1.5. Now, when the character is created, it'll look, and every 1 second it will see if the variable is big, is true or false. If it's true, it will set the uniform scale to 0.5. If it's false, it'll set it to 1.5. Now we need to update the variable every time we change the character size, because we can't just leave it as true when the character is small, because it's not big anymore. So we need to do an update BP variable right here, update blueprint variable, and we're going to pin it to this, and we're going to set, again, open the link browser, is big, and we're going to leave bool unchecked. Because if we look, when the character is created, every second it looks to see if is big is true or false. If it's true, which means the character is big, it sets the character to 0.5 its original scale, and then it changes the bool to be unticked. So it unticks the boolean, so now the bool is big is equal to false, so big is false. Now we're going to add another one, there we go, and we're going to pin it together, and we're going to again set it to is big, but this one we're going to tick so that when is big is false, it sets the uniform scale to 1.5, and then it changes the variable is big to be true. And just like that, we should be done with our entire blueprint here. And we're going to come up to the top, and we're going to press save, and now we're going to right click again, and we're going to click show in Explorer. And there's a whole bunch of things here, so we're going to sort by date modified, and we're going to grab PC Marine Base Authority, and we're going to put it in our local folder. Now that's in our local folder, I'm going to go in and I'm going to delete our previous edits to Titus. Now we are good to go. I'm going to press start. Alright, now we are Titus, and every 1 second we get bigger or smaller, bigger or smaller, bigger or smaller. And it's kind of annoying. And it's only us. If we did it to client, you would see Gadriel and Chiron doing it, as well as all of these guys. Actually, maybe not that guy, because he's not a playable character, but maybe these guys would do it. I actually don't know. They might be not parented to player character, so maybe they wouldn't. But if they were players, if they were human beings, then if we set it to client, then you would see it. But every 1 second we get bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller. And everything still works as intended, so everything's still here. But that is blueprint editing for you. I had to do that tutorial like 5 or 6 times to like understand it enough to explain it, and so I really hope that my efforts were worth it and you guys like learn from that, and if it's, you know, interesting enough that you might try and do more complicated things than this. I stole this tutorial from Integration Studio's PDF, so this is like the bottom of the barrel of the kind of stuff that you can do with this. There's so much more things that you can do with blueprints. It's actually insane, and I hope that we get some more people figuring out how to manipulate the game like this. The next thing we're going to learn is how to edit text files. We're going to go in and we're going to change the name of Titus in the subtitles, so like the speaker name of the subtitle. To do this, you're going to need some kind of text editing tool. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code because that's my preferred software. I'll leave a link to it in the description below in case you want to try it out. There are a lot of things you may find easier doing in text format rather than in Integration Studio, and although that idea might make you a crazy person, modding is all about comfortability and personal preference. But then there are also things like this that can only be done in a text editor. To change Titus's name, we have to change the entire file for localization, which is a fancy word for language. The file we need to change is inside of the default pack, not the default other pack, that's different. The default pack, just default. It's in the same spot as all the other pack files, it's just at the very top. It's called default pack, not default other. And open it, and inside of this file you're going to see a folder called texts. Click text, and here's all of the supported languages for the game. So we can see Brazilian, Czech, English, French, German, Italian, whatever. All of these. Every file that they have a supported language for. Because I speak English, and I'm doing this tutorial in English, I'm going to open and edit the English file. Right click, and we're going to copy the English file, the English str file, to our clipboard. And then we're going to come into our local folder. So we're going to client PC root local. And in here we have our SSL folder from when we were making Titus get bigger and smaller. Right in here we're going to make a new folder, and we're going to call it texts. Because if we come back and look at this, we're pretending the local folder is default.pack. And inside of default.pack is the text folder where all of the text strings are. So because this is the default pack, text file goes in here, and we open up the text folder and we can paste our string file in here. So once we're there, we're going to open it with our text editor. And in this file, it has literally every single piece of text throughout the entire game. It's all of it. Every single instance of text or string or whatever that you see in the game anywhere. This is subtitles on surfaces, in UI. This is every single piece of text in the entire game, and it is ultimately 24,000 lines long. Every entry in here comes with two parts. It has a variable name, like this one has boot seizure warning as the variable. And its text that it says is warning risk of seizure. So that's the big red letters that pops up right at the start of your game whenever you boot it up. Because we don't know what the variable name is for the Titus speaker, I mean, we can probably guess, but because we don't know what it is exactly, we're just going to hit Command F, and we're going to search for the word Titus. If I spell it correctly, Titus. And you can see there are a lot of instances of Titus in this file. Lucky for me and for you guys, I happen to know the exact variable name for what we're looking for. It is UI underscore character underscore Titus underscore name. We're just going to go into these quotation marks and we're going to change it to subscribe. Because I'm a YouTuber. And then we're going to save the file and launch our game. Alright, now we have our big and small Titus. And if I come over to here to work with the elevator, I should activate some kind of a cutscene here. And in the subtitle name of the speaker, you should be able to see the name Titus. Or subscribe, there you go.
We are to recapture them.
Lost them already. The Tyranids are hurling spores of those guns in great waves. I'm impressed the Cadians held out this long.
He handshook me. It's funny that he didn't get bigger or smaller.
Have any of you faced Tyranids
Subscribe.
before?
Only these past 2 days.
Then there is much to learn.
I look forward to it.
There you go. There is that done. So let's move on to the next thing. So I'm actually super excited to tell you about WinMerge. I found it to be one of the most useful tools when actually trying to update my mod, and it's super simple, easy to use, and completely free. WinMerge works exactly like a text editor, but it's got a lot of very useful features that let you compare two different files. To showcase this, we're going to use our subscribe text file that we did earlier. It doesn't have to be a text file, but it can be. We're just going to use this as an example. What we're going to do is we're going to take our modded file, right? So this is the English string with the subscribe in it in our local folder, and we're going to just drag it into here. And now it is this first area. And now we're going to come back to our default pack here, and we're going to open up the text, and we're going to drag the English str into this second area right here. There we go. Now we can press compare, and if you look in here, all of this is exactly the same. It's all white, except for right here where it is highlighted, because this is where we made the difference. So this is our modded file here, and this is the vanilla file over here. Over here in the modded file, we changed this line to say subscribe, and in the vanilla file, it says Titus. Right now, this isn't the best ideal setup because this is the actual vanilla file, which we don't want to mess up at all, but it's perfect for this example because all we're going to do is we're going to click where it's yellow, so just click anywhere along the yellow, and then up here in this top, there are two arrows, copy to right and copy to left. There's also these arrows over here, copy all to right and copy all to left, and there's some other things in here that you can look through, but we're going to click copy to left. And now you can see that it says Titus on both the vanilla side and the modded side. And you can see the changes are saved because there's this little bar here, and the whole file is now white, and now I've lost where that was. So that's how that works. To showcase it on a kind of bigger project, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually drag one of my own mods that I've made into this. These are my files for Blood and Iron. This is the difficulty mod that I've made and posted on Nexus, and these files right here are the important files. This is just a backup save, and these are the exported pack files. This is the important stuff here, and if we go and we open up WinMerge, and if we go back one and drag the main mod folder into this area, right? And then we come to our mod source folder, and we're going to drag mod source into the secondary folder. And so because these are at the same root, like main mod has all of the SSL and UI and folders like this in it, and mod source has all of the folders like this. If we press compare, this is going to show all of the files. So the folders that are cut off on that corner are the ones that are on the left side. So that folder is only in my Blood and Iron, and FGA meta is only in the mod source folder. So we can ignore these, but in SSL, it's a full folder and it's got a little red thing in it, which means that something is different. And if we open it up, here's a bunch of these different ones, and there's a whole bunch of folders here. You can see these are all just on the mod source side, and none of these are on just the Blood and Iron side. So looking through here, there are a bunch of other full folders with a little red marker on them, and that means that something within that folder is different from the other side. And so we're going to look, and we're going to probably let's just open abilities. Here's a bunch of files, and all of these are just on the vanilla side, but this one right here is a full folder with a red marker. So we're going to open it, and here's a bunch of other files that are on that side, but here's a file with a red marker. And so if we double click it, here is the difference. In vanilla, the health trail as extra healing is set to 100, and in Blood and Iron I have it set to 0. So if I wanted to fix that, I could copy over the vanilla files to this, and now my Blood and Iron file has that. And now that that's done, we can come up here, we can press File, Save. And now I'm going to quickly show you in my Blood and Iron folder. Here is two files: ability module logic health restoring and ability module logic health restoring SSO.back. This is the new one that we just did, and this is the old one. So every time you save a file, it makes a backup of the previous one. So if you break something, you have a backup saved, right? When we saved that file, it made a new one and renamed the old one to .back so that it's a backup file. When you're done with it being saved and everything in the file is exactly how it is in vanilla, the little folder over here will get a little green check mark. So that means everything in this file is exactly the same on both sides. So this is the same as in Blood and Iron as it is in the mod source folder. So let's say that I want to update the localization file for English to change some of the text, but then the vanilla game updates and adds more text entries to the game. How do I deal with that? Well, I'm going to grab the text string for Blood and Iron that I have in here and put it into my first slot, and then I'm going to go and grab the vanilla one from the default area, and I'm going to compare. So there are a lot of differences in this file because I have changed a lot of different things in this text file. But as we can see at the bottom here, there is this big gray area right here. And that is because all of these things in the vanilla file are present in the vanilla file but not in my mod file. So I'm missing them. Not I changed the vanilla one and now it's telling me that it's different. These entries in this file are just not here. So all we're going to do is click on the yellow and merge over. And now all of those fresh lines are in our file and our thing is now up to date. Index is a wonderful file ripping tool made by Walden House, available on GitHub. Index lets us rip pretty much any 3D file or texture from the game, which is super useful when you want to make new things or want to find like a specific model or texture from the game. I'm going to show you how to use it and what basic export settings you should usually use. First things first, as with pretty much everything in this tutorial, you should always download the latest version. This is the GitHub page for Index. It's called Index V2 by Waldenhouse. There will be a link in the description to it. And to download this, we're just going to come down here where it says releases, and we're just going to click on Hotfix 2, which is the latest version, and it is going to bring us here. And you're going to click on Index Zip, and it's going to download. Now in our downloads folder, we can see Index is here. Alright, we are going to open it and extract everything. And now that it is extracted, we're going to open it and we're going to click on the exe to run it. It's going to have this pop up, click more info, and run anyway. This little hammer should pop up and you should see this. It's pretty empty right now, but we're going to click on the plus symbol and we're going to find our Steam directory. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to Steam, and we're going to right click on Space Marine 2, and we're going to browse local files. And then we're just going to copy this path up here. And then we're going to paste it up here. You want to select the client PC folder, but don't go into it, just click on it so it's highlighted. And if this says client PC down here, press select folder. And then your game should pop up. So now we're going to click on this, and we're going to click the launch button. You should see this, and then Index should open. And this is what it looks like. There's a search feature here with a map section, material, model, and texture. Let's just search for Titus. Okay, we search for Titus and we get materials for Titus, models for Titus, and textures for Titus. So this is by name. I'm going to open up the model and we're going to get CC Titus TPL. This is the normal one. So we're going to open it, we're going to let it load, and if it is black like this, because there's nothing here, just close the window again and open it. Sometimes it doesn't load the first time. If it doesn't load the second time, then that file might just be empty. There might just literally be nothing there. But this file does have something in it, and it just failed to load the first time. Here is Titus from the game. This is Titus's character, so this is his helmet with his hair in there. There's a bunch of all his armor pieces. And you can like turn things on and off in here with this side over. So you can click on this and now he's not wearing his backpack. If we find a helmet, we can turn off the helmet. And then there's Titus's face underneath it. So what we're going to do is we're going to export this file. We're going to come to File, Export, and here are export settings. I'm going to put this into just my downloads folder, but you probably should get a better spot for it. I'm just going to do browse with the 3 dots and click on my downloads and press select folder. Okay, so the export settings that you should probably have if you're planning on doing this like for games to like put stuff back in the game. You should change it from FBX to GLTF2. And I would recommend that you don't remove LODs or volumes. And then exporting textures is, you can do that if you want. I'm going to, because I want to show you how to export textures. Keep the textures as TGAs and change the normal map to DirectX. This is what your thing should look like. Removing LODs will just, there's a bunch of stuff like this. Okay, hold on. There's a bunch of stuff like this, if it'll show. So here is Element LOD5. And it looks like crap. So LODs are a game term for level of detail. So the farther away from the camera something is, the uglier it looks, because you can sacrifice, like if I look at this one, right? This is a great helmet up close, right? And then if I go down to this one and then zoom way out, you kind of can't really tell that it's a bad helmet. It just kind of looks normal. So you can get away with that because your eyes can't see all the detail. And so that's what an LOD is. You don't really need them, but unless you're doing something that you know is going to be intensive, you really should just leave it unchecked and grab them anyway. And then volumes are for like hitboxes and stuff. If your settings are like this, then you can press export. This may take a while, and depending on the file size or how many meshes are on top of a file, it could be a very long time and the index might crash or your computer might turn off. So make sure you have enough RAM and memory to export things if you're going to go for bigger files. Titus isn't that big, but there are things like the PvE characters. Those are freaking massive. They're absolutely gigantic. And if you don't have a good computer, it might crash. Or you just can't do anything except sit there and watch the index load. Now that it's done, we can come back to our downloads folder, and here is the folder for cc_Titus, because that's the name of it, cc_Titus. So I'm going to open this, and inside is all of the textures for Titus and the TDs, so those are important for game stuff. You don't need them really for this, but it is the textures are all the TGAs, and the TDs are the materials, and this is the 3D file. Mine has a little Blender symbol next to it, but yours won't. But we're going to open it in Blender, but we can't just double click on this or tell it to open with Blender. So what we're going to do is we're going to download Blender, which I will also have a link in the description to, and we're going to delete everything in the scene, and then we're going to drag our GLTF, not the bin file, but the GLTF, into the scene and press import GLTF. Whatever these settings are should be fine. Alright, here is all of this. These CDTs are kind of all over the place, and so you may have to reposition them, which sucks. But right now everything is kind of, you can see everything. So I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna filter to empties, and I'm just gonna select all, and I'm gonna hide them because we don't want to delete them. And then I'm gonna click on the skeleton, and I'm gonna hide the skeleton. And then I'm going to type the word CDT, and I'm going to press A, and I'm going to hide everything. So now all the CDTs are gone. And then the final thing to do so we can see the real mesh is to type the word LOD, and press A to select everything, and H to hide. And there you go. There is everything. And there's some stuff here. So this is like a sim mesh. The way the game works, I will explain it later. We can hide those as well. H. Okay. And now the only conflicting thing on here should be the fact that Titus's helmet and his hair are not playing nice. There's Titus, there's his helmet, and here is the pre-order shoulder pauldron. Oops, it comes with this. There you go. This is Titus's normal shoulder pauldron. This is his helmet, and this is Titus's pre-order shoulder pauldron for if you pre-ordered Space Marine 2. And you can look at all of these meshes, they're super high quality, and you can do that with pretty much anything using index. So I could do any character, anything that I wanted, but that's how you use index. So I need to clarify this now that this is not a tutorial on how to use Blender, or how to 3D model using Blender or any other program. I am not going to show you how to create 3D models. You need to already have that experience yourself, or go on YouTube and Google some tutorials. What I'm going to show you will work if you just add a basic cube and do the tutorial with that, but obviously then it'll just be a cube, which is no fun, so keep that in mind. Now I'm going to show you some very basic stuff to create your own mods that have custom 3D model. For this one, we're going to add a completely custom shoulder pauldron to Titus. Now, it's 100% possible to turn that index rip that we did into a model that can be reused in game, but it takes a lot of effort and you really need to know exactly what you're doing in order for it to work. So for this tutorial, we'll just be playing around with an already made template of Titus that is completely set up and ready to go back into the game. If we go back to our mod editor folder, which is this one, we can see that there is included with the mod editor the model converter folder, and in here you have a bunch of tools that are really useful to creating and exporting and re-implementing 3D models back into the game. The one that we are going to be using is in this pre-made templates folder. These are blend files that are already set up and ready to be messed around with and then re-imported back into the game. We're going to just open up the Titus blend file. When it's open, this is what you'll see. It's the same as the index rip, except all of the CDTs are in the right spot. We're going to do the exact same thing we did last time. We're going to type CDT, and we're going to select everything and hide. We're going to filter out this for empty, so we're going to select everything and hide. We're going to click on the bones and hide the bones, and then we're going to type LOD, and we're going to do this individually. So backpack, Okay, now we're looking at Titus with all of his LODs hidden and a bunch of stuff, and just the main meshes are shown. I'm going to create a new shoulder pauldron for this side of him. So what I'm going to do is I am going to duplicate this shoulder pauldron with Shift D and move it over here. And I'm going to very quickly block out and then model a shoulder pauldron.
A few moments later.
Alright, there. I tried my best to model something that at least kind of resembles a Space Marine shoulder pauldron. This is literally the worst model I have ever made in my entire life. So, anyway, now that we have that, we can delete our duplicate, and this is our fun little shoulder pauldron. I'm going to move it back into roughly the same place and position as the original. This is probably going to be the hardest part, is just positioning it, but it does not have to be perfect. That's kind of a shoulder pauldron. The more I look at it, the more happy I get about it, kind of. I never claimed to be a modeler. Now that our shoulder pauldron is roughly in place, we're going to bring back the other one and look down here at our vertex groups. And we're going to come up here into object mode, and we're going to go into weight paint mode. Weight painting is really important for video games because it tells the game how each bone on a character's skeleton is interacting with all of the meshes attached to it. The higher the weight, or the more red a mesh is, the more that bone is going to influence where that mesh will be positioned and how it will move and stretch. So we can see shoulder skinned L has a weight of 1, which is the full red, which means that all of this bone, shoulder skinned L, is controlling where that shoulder pauldron is going to be. And if we go to shoulder L, this is blue, which is 0. And so this bone is doing absolutely nothing, and I don't know why it's here on the shoulder pauldron. But this tells us that if we want our new shoulder pauldron to move like the old shoulder pauldron, what we can do is we can add a vertex group on this. It has to be the name of the bone, so we're going to grab the name of this shoulder skinned L, we're going to paste it there, and then in edit mode I'm going to select the entire mesh with A, and I'm going to make sure that the weight here says 1, and I'm just going to click assigned. Alright, we're going to hide the other shoulder pauldron and just double check in weight mode. Yep, shoulder skinned L has my weights on it, and this shoulder pauldron is now moving the exact same way that the other one would be. Okay, I am going to go back into object mode. Now we're going to name our cube Titus shoulder L01, which is the same as this shoulder pauldron that's here. You can name it something else, but then we'd have to do more to edit to make it show up, but right now we're just going to completely replace this shoulder pauldron. So we're going to copy the name and paste it in like that. Alright, and then we're going to parent it to this and delete the original shoulder pauldron, which will bring us all these lots down here, which we also have to delete. And then we need to remove the .001 at the end of this shoulder pauldron. If we look at, let's say, the arm here, all of these meshes have a custom modifier called armature that parents them to the root. So this is the final step that we need to do, is come over to this little wrench button here on our custom shoulder pauldron, click add modifier and search for armature. There it is. And now all we do is click on this and select root. Do not apply the modifier. Don't do that. You don't need to. Alright, leave it like this. Now it is weighted to the correct bone and named just like the shoulder pauldron that we're replacing. Because of the way the game works, every single mesh needs to have a material. Otherwise the game will crash. So we're going to come down here into the material tab. It's this little red circle. And we're going to press new material. And then we're going to call it SC_gray_90. There we go. This is just like a bare bones kind of material. When we put this in here, the entire shoulder pauldron will be completely white now, or gray, I guess. It's more white than gray. And the game won't crash when we load. We're going to press File, Cleanup, Purge Unused Data. And if there's nothing there, then you're good. But anything that's unused, delete it. We're going to click on this, and we're going to Control A, and we're going to apply all transformations. There you go. Now the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to export this. So we're going to export as a GLTF 2.0. The first thing that we need to do is come over here and change from GLTF binary, which is a GLB file, to GLTF separate, so GLTF plus bin plus textures. Press Remember Export Settings. In the Include section, click on Custom Properties. In the Data section, go to Mesh and click Apply Modifiers, UVs, Normals, Tangents, and Attributes. We can leave everything else unchecked. In the Material space where it says Images, set it to None, and then everything is completed and good. Make sure the name is Titus CC GLTF, and we're going to path it back into our model converter folder. So we're going to go to Downloads, Mod Tools Patch 10.03, Model Converter, and then this model converter folder here. There we go, Titus GLTF. Let it load, don't touch anything, wait for it to load. Now that the spinning wheel of death is gone, we're going to come back to this, and we're going to go out and into the model converter folder. And here is our Titus GLTF and our bin file. To get this part to work, you need to install Python. I will leave a link to Python in the description, but you need it, you need to download it. Hover over this downloads button and click on whatever version of Python is available right here. You're going to run it, and this window will pop up, and you will see a bunch of different options. Make sure you check both use admin privileges while installing py.exe and add python.exe to path. This is important for getting our thing to work, this part right here. Other than that, just click install now and let it do its thing. Now we can come back to our USF exporter, and in here we're going to open up CMD because you need to install something called PyYAML for this. And you should, if you installed it, you should be able to do pip install PyYAML like that. And if you type that out, it will install the extension for you, and then you'll be good to go. I already have mine installed, as you can see right there. It already says it right there. I'll have the exact command in the description. The bin and the GLTF need to be in the exact same location. They don't have to be in this model converter folder, but they need to be in the same location in order for the model converter to work. If you're on Windows 11, all you need to do is drag and drop onto the model converter exe. And then all this will go, and it'll tell you if there's any errors. These things up here where it says not found, these are fine. This is stuff that it will do automatically. We can close this. If you are not on Windows 11, you can come up here and type in this, so all of this is highlighted, CMD, and it'll bring up the command prompt window up here. Alright, you can then type model converter.exe space and then drag your GLTF into this window and then press enter, and it'll do it exactly the same way as if you had just dragged it on top of it. And either way we do it, you'll see now here is a USF. This is one of the final steps in order to put it into the game. The USF is not what we need. We need the TPL. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the USF, and we're going to come back and open up the USF exporter. We're going to paste the USF export into here. If you're on Windows 11, you can drag the USF onto converttpl.py. And you're just going to sit here and let it do its thing. If you are not on Windows 11, you can come up here just like we did for the model converter, and you can type CMD, and there is a manual command. Type py space convert underscore tpl.py, which is the file name, space, and then drag the USF file into the CMD window and hit enter. The file should convert the exact same way as it did when we just dragged and dropped it, and when it's finished, it will automatically close. Now that the window is closed down, it means everything should have been converted correctly, and we can double check by opening our project folder, going to Models and Database. There should be a folder with the name of the blend file that you did, plus the extension TPL. So we called our blend file cc_titus, and now we have a cc_titus TPL folder. Inside the TPL folder is a bunch of the data required to get the model to load correctly, and all we need to do to actually put it in game is to come into our local folder and make a TPL folder. So I'm just going to make a new folder in the local folder and call it TPL. And then I'm going to copy this and paste it into our TPL folder. There we go. The very last thing that you'll need to do is to come into the TPL folder and open up the TPL resource. There are 2 lines in here that we have to change, the TPL markup and the TPL markup at the bottom. So this is linked TPL markup and this is just regular TPL markup. Every time you convert the TPL in the resource file, you have to make sure that these 2 lines here have the name of the TPL underscore markup.resource. And then for the one at the bottom, just cc underscore titus.tpl. So it's just the TPL name underscore markup. This file basically has like all of the textures here and all of the materials. And every time you add a new texture or material, you need to update the resource file. But when you convert the USF, it does it automatically. Every time you convert the USF, this resource file will have blank spaces at the top and bottom here, and you need to fill them with whatever the TPL name is, underscore markup, or underscore markup.resource. And I'll have both of those in the description for you to copy and paste. After that, press save, and then just launch your game on Steam. Alright, now that we are in game, we can see that there's my really cruddy shoulder pauldron with no space for the arm to come through, but you can see that it's moving with Titus's body. It moves just like as if it were the regular shoulder pauldron. I could do emotes. I could do, it moves the same way that the old shoulder pauldron would have moved. So, and as you can see, it's white-ish gray kind of. I mean, it's green in this lighting, but it's got that material on it. But I don't like it being white, so why don't we move on to... The first thing we have to do to texture this pauldron is UV unwrap our object. Think back to when you were in school. Do you remember when your teacher had you take a piece of construction paper that had this weird T-looking shape printed on it, and then she had you cut it out and then fold it together and somehow it made a box? That's what UV unwrapping is, but it's just in reverse. So we start with the box and end up with a 2D shape. The easiest way to do this in Blender, if you don't know how, is to use Smart UV Project. I ended up asking one of my buddies to make a pauldron for me because, to no fault of the engine or the game, the one I made just sucked. Like, big time. So now we have this pauldron, which looks way nicer because he's actually a 3D artist. But continuing on, to UV unwrap this pauldron, we're going to click on it, go into edit mode, select the whole pauldron, and then press U on our keyboard and find the Smart UV Project button. Give the island margin it'll be 0.00 by default. Give it a 0.01 margin, and you shouldn't have to touch any of this other stuff. Press unwrap, come up to the top where it says layout modeling sculpting, and here UV editing. Click on it, and this is our UV map. Usually this is just fine. Usually the Smart UV will do it pretty well. But we're going to double check and make sure nothing is stretching too terribly by coming up to where this blue button is at the top with the 2 circles and clicking on the drop down arrow next to it, and where it says UV stretch, checking the box next to the word angle. Generally you want most of the squares in this to be this blue color, right? You don't really want this light blue color, but it's not going to be super perfect. You want to try and eliminate the light blue colors, and you definitely, see if I drag this, you don't want yellow or green at all. Generally you want the dark blue, but it's fine if you can't get it perfect. Stuff like this should be more or less okay. And if you really feel like you want to fix it, as you can see, if you just move them around like this, the color changes, and so you can try and reposition stuff. Now, because we've UV projected, we want to come back to the layout mode and click on our shoulder pauldron. And one of the final things we need to do in Blender is change the material down here from SC Gray 90 to whatever you want. So I'm going to call this Tutorial Shoulder. The name of the material can't have spaces, but it can be capitalized wherever you want it, and it can be named whatever you want. Now make sure the shoulder pauldron is selected, like it's highlighted, alright? And then we're going to go to File, Export, FBX instead of GLTF, and over here we're going to make sure that it is limit to the selected objects, so that the object we have selected is the one it's exporting. Make sure that all of these object types you have disabled except for mesh. Then change the forward to be Y forward and the up to be Z up. Then apply unit, use space transform, and apply transformations. Give it a name, put it in. I'm going to put mine in my downloads folder, shoulder, and export as FBX. I want to clarify two things. One, Substance Painter is not the only program you can use for this. You can use Blender, and you can also use a photo editor if you exported the UV map as like an image. Substance Painter is just the best program to use. Number two, once again, this is not a tutorial on how to use Adobe Substance Painter. You have to already know how to use Adobe Substance Painter in order to follow this tutorial, so go to YouTube and look up some tutorials for that. My buddies and I have been kind enough to supply you with a starter pack of sorts for this kind of stuff. There will be a Google Drive linked below with a couple of smart materials and an export preset specifically designed for Space Marine 2. I am going to be using all of these assets, so if you don't have your own textures you want to use, you can use ours. Speaking of which, I'm going to show you how to install our stuff. Once you've downloaded the file from the Google Doc, you can open up the folder and you'll see all of this stuff that's on my screen here. There's an export pauldron, FBX, there's a Space Marine 2 SPEXP, which is the Substance Painter export preset. And there's a README for the smart materials and a folder with all of the smart materials in it that we're going to use. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the Space Marine 2 export preset. Go into your local disk, go into Program Files, find Adobe, Adobe Substance Painter, Resources, Starter Assets, and Export Presets. Right here. We can copy that aspects and put it into here. And continue with Administrator. Now it's in there. Now, while we're also here, we're going to install the smart materials. If we go one folder back, down here is a smart materials folder. There's a bunch of stuff here, but we're going to put all of ours into the custom folder. So we're going to drag all of these into our custom folder and continue with Administrator for every item. Now that these are installed, we can continue with the tutorial. Obviously, the first thing to do is to bring our mesh into Substance. And to do that, we're going to come up to File and press New. And we're going to change the document resolution from 1024 to 4096. So we're going to make a 4K texture, kind of, not really. We'll click on Select and click on your tutorial shoulder pauldron or whatever you made and click Open and then OK. Now our shoulder pauldron will be here in Substance and we can see it very clearly. Very nice and pretty looking. The first thing you should do whenever you bring a new custom object into Substance Painter is bake. So we're going to come to this little croissant looking thing in the top. Click on it and we're going to change the output size up here to 4096. Leave pretty much everything else alone, and then we are going to bake selected textures. Now we're going to come back to our paintbrush space, and it doesn't really look like anything has changed, but that's okay. Up here in this top corner, we are going to click on this little circle here with a line through it, or if it's small enough, it'll be a little filter thing, and you can click on it and click on the word Smart Materials. If we come down to the bottom, we have S, we can see all of our SM2 smart materials. So here's the ceramite, here's the metal, silver, painter template, all this stuff. I am going to drag the ceramite onto the pauldron, and then I'm going to add a black mask and add paint, and then I'm going to paint by polygon and by area. And then I'm going to drag the silver trims into our scene, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, black mask, paint layer, and then I'm going to paint by UV map. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the Space Marine 2 AO Rust to the entire pauldron. I'm going to drag it to the top. Now you will notice that the trims on this pauldron are not gold like we want them to be. They are silver, because that's the name of this material over here. Lucky for us, if we expand the material, on both the damage and the base color layers in here, there is this color match, and if we want to see the color that it is, this target color down here, just unhide it and do the same thing on the damage, and now we can see the different colors. And if you wanted to, you could change it. So I'm going to change the base color target to, like, I don't know, pink color, and see the trim changed colors. You'll get the most use out of this if you make sure that both of the colors are the same, but I'm going to leave it at gold. Now that we have our pauldron painted, it's time to export our textures. So we're going to come up to the top where it says File, and we're going to click Export Textures. When you open the export settings, it'll probably look something like this, but we're going to change pretty much everything here. So the first thing we're going to start with is the output directory. Click on this, and I'm going to direct it to my downloads folder. There we go. Then in the output template, we can scroll down to our Space Marine 2, which we installed earlier. Then change the file type to a Targa. Leave the 8 bits as 8 bits, and change the size to 4096. Then we can go to export, and then in our downloads folder we will have these 3 TGA textures. TD files are what we would call materials. Basically, they are files that attach to the textures in the game and describe how the world should interact with them. They are also required in order to correctly convert our TGA files into something that the game can actually read. To make things easier on ourselves, generally we can get away with stealing an already existing TD for something similar to what we're trying to make. Lucky for us, all of the TD files are in one place, the TD pack. The TD pack is in client PC, root, packs, client, default, and at the very bottom, td.pack. There's only one of them. Since I did a shoulder pauldron, I'm going to search for something that's just shoulder. See what comes up. Let's, I suppose, just use this one. It's probably fine. Yeah, that's probably fine. We're going to copy the base TD, the specular TD, and the normal map TD. So that's whatever it is .td, whatever it is _nm.td, and whatever it is _spec.td. And we're going to copy files to clipboard, and we're going to put them in our USF exporter in our mod tools patch, and in project assets TD, put them in there. Alright, now to get our materials set up correctly, we need to first go back to our blend file to remember our name, because I've already forgotten it. We just called it tutorial shoulder. Okay, so copy the name of our material for this pauldron. We need to rename all 3 of these. So this should be, instead of CH Berserk Common Shoulders 01, it should be tutorial shoulder.td. This should be tutorial shoulder _nm.td, and this one should be tutorial shoulder _spec.td. There we go. Now we can open up our base TD. There's a bunch of different settings in this file with concerns to how the texture is going to look in game. For the most part, if you pick a generally similar TD to the item that you're trying to do, so like this is the TD for a shoulder pauldron. Like, we're doing a shoulder pauldron, this is a TD for a shoulder pauldron. You probably won't have to mess with a lot of this stuff up here, like, at all. But you will have to mess with everything down here, because we don't have any other extra materials that we're doing other than this default here. And so, because we don't have these, we can get rid of them. Alright, so that we just have default as a thing here. And then at the top up here where it says map level, change that to 8, and then we can save this TD file. And then if we look in the normal map TD, we pretty much just leave this completely alone, like don't touch it at all. And the same thing with the spec map, don't touch this at all, this is all fine. If you followed that, the TD should be set up correctly now. They should be. So we can come back to our USF exporter and drag our 3 textures into this folder here. And unfortunately we have to do them one at a time, but good thing there's not that many, drag them onto convert.pct.py. If dragging and dropping the TGA onto the convert.pct.py does not work, you can use the manual command by coming up here and typing cmd, hitting enter, and then typing py space, so py space, convert_pct.py, and then dragging the TGA into this window and hitting enter. There is an optimal order to this conversion process. You should start with the normal map and specular map textures and then do the base texture. I'm going to do the spec map first, then I'm going to do the normal map, and then I'm going to do the base TD, or the base texture. Now that they are all converted, if we open up our project folder and go into our resource folder, we can see that there is now a PCT folder, which has all of our PCT files and our resource files. These are what the texture files actually are. So texture files in the game are PCT files, not TGAs, not PNGs, they're PCT files. And just like all the other files, they need a resource file. So we're going to grab all of these, copy them, and we're going to bring them into our local folder. We have to make a PCT folder, so we're going to press new folder PCT, and then we can open it and paste our new files into there. And then we do need the TD files, so we're going to go back one. We're going to press new folder TD. I'm going to go into it. We're going to come back and we're going to our assets folder and TD, and we're going to copy all of these and paste them into the TD folder. And now when we start our game, our new textures should be on that pauldron, and it should look more or less like another in-game asset. There we go. There is our custom shoulder pauldron with its nice shiny new textures. But one thing you'll notice is that there are bumps all over the pauldron, and these in fact are not bumps. They're supposed to be indents or scratches and stuff in the mesh, but they are inverted. The normal map is inverted and things look like they're popping out instead of going in. And so there's one last thing we can do in order to fix this, which is to reconvert the entirety of Titus again. And to do that, we're gonna have to come all the way back here to the model converter and reconvert the GLTF. But we're gonna have to do it manually this time because there is a command we have to put at the end of it. So we're gonna come up to the top and we're gonna type cmd, and it's gonna open a command prompt window. We're going to type model converter.exe, and then we're going to drag the GLTF into the space, and then we're going to press space dash dash keep dash tangent dash orientation, just like that. And I will have that command in the description so you can copy and paste it. And there you have it. As you can see, the scratches and scrapes are now properly going into the pauldron rather than sticking out. Some of them look kind of weird, but it's honestly just angle and lighting. These are kind of bigger scratches, and so they would do a lot better if they were painted off and, you know, you actually broke the geometry up to match these scratches, but we haven't, so it doesn't look the best that it could be. But this is just, you know, bare bones. You know, if you look from the side, this scratch looks fine. These down here, that one looks okay. Stuff down there, and the little imperfections, bumps and stuff look great. Another thing is, if you'll notice, come back to these extra textures on Titus that were there before we converted him. These are all before they looked like they were sticking out or inverted, and now they don't look like that. So, and that concludes the tutorial. That is everything that I was going to show you in regards to creating mods in the first place. The last thing that I'm going to show you, well, the last two things are going to be how to pack up a mod so that it can be sent to other people and go into the mods folder and work, and then how to install the custom crash reporter that the devs gave us that should help to give you a slightly better idea of what happens. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is show you how to install the Crash Reporter. That's in the Model Converter folder that came with Integration Studio, and this Crash Reporter folder. If we open it up, inside it's a bunch of stuff. We pretty much just copy all of this. Then we're going to find our game director, and we're going to go to client PC, root, bin, PC, and right here there's the crash reporter, so we're going to copy all of this stuff and put it in there and replace the files. There you go. And that's how you install the crash reporter. And this won't tell you exactly why something is crashing, but it will give you a better idea of what is causing a crash, instead of it just saying that the game crashes like normal. And you may have to reinstall this a bunch of different times, so don't delete this. For whatever reason, I find that it automatically uninstalls itself, and it might do it every update. It might re-update this file. Who knows? So just keep your hands on this and be ready to reinstall it if it suddenly stops working. Alright, the last and final thing that I'm going to show you is how to pack your mods, and this is putting them into a state where they can be easily downloaded by other users and thrown right into the mods folder and work right out of the gate. First, we come into our local folder and we're going to highlight all of everything on our local folder, the entire contents, and we're going to right click, and with WinRAR we're going to add to archive. So when you first do this, you might see something sort of like this, and that's fine. We're going to create our own export profile, and so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type in this box .pack, because that'll remind you whenever you make a new mod that the end has to be pack, so it has to be my mod.pack. Otherwise, it'll just put zip at the end of it. But we're going to keep it on zip, and then we're going to change the compression method to store, and we're pretty much done now. We're going to click on this profile button and save settings as current profile, SM2, and if you want, you can set it as the default profile. Somehow I forgot to mention that you need to check this box right here, save archive as name, in order for the .pack to actually show up when you load the profile. But after you've done that, we can name it something like my mod.pack and press OK, and we'll get a mod pack like that right there. And I'm going to cut it, delete what's in our folder there, go back one, and open up the mods folder and paste it into there, and then I can start my game. And as you can see, with just our mod pack, our custom shoulder pauldron with its textures and everything fixed is there, just like if it were in the local folder. Some final tips and tricks that I couldn't fit anywhere specific in the video, but you will absolutely run into. Number 1, do not make multiple folders for different mods in mod source. I know this can be tempting, but making a folder like this that says my mod and putting the entire game into this folder and editing it inside of this will work, but it is a very bad idea. Your resource files will generate incorrectly and you will have broken data and files. So you cannot have multiple folders in your mod source folder that contain individual mods inside of them. It will mess up your files. So it is always a good idea to keep one version of your game files out here and make sure that you make backups of your mod source folder. Number 2, having a mod anywhere in your game files. So literally anywhere in the game directory, in your mods folder, in your local folder, in your mods deactivated folder that you get if you use the mod loader, in your packs files, in the mod source folder. Literally any pack file that you leave anywhere in your game that is not a vanilla pack file. If you try and open index, it won't load. It'll crash. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you have no mods in your files. And then when you launch index, if you have no modded files in there, it'll boot up just fine. Number 3, speaking of index, you cannot use index to export 3D models, textures, or materials from modded game files. It does not work on mods, they will not load, and tip 2 is exactly why. There is never going to be a way to use index to export 3D models, textures, or materials from mods, ever. Number 4, Mod load order. Mods get loaded in reverse alphanumerical order. Alphanumerical order is where numbers come first from smallest to biggest before moving on to the letter A and ending with the letter Z. I say reverse alphanumerical order because mods beginning with the letter Z will be loaded first. Then a mod with the letter A will be loaded, either adding or overwriting changes to the game. Then mods beginning with the number 1 will be loaded, then 0, and so forth. A good way to visualize this order of priority is to organize your mods folder by name. Here I have 4 mods in my mods folder. First, Zmod gets loaded and makes changes to the game. Next, Amod gets loaded and makes more changes to the game. Currently, these two files do not conflict with each other. Then, OneMod gets loaded, and OneMod makes changes to the same files as Zmod. So because OneMod is loaded after Zmod, it overwrites the changes Zmod made, essentially nullifying Zmod and making it obsolete to have in your mods folder, which means we can delete it. Finally, ZeroMod gets loaded, and ZeroMod contains the exact changes in both Amod and OneMod, but also adds some changes of its own. Since ZeroMod is loaded after both Amod and OneMod, it takes priority and overwrites both of them, making both Amod and OneMod obsolete. And it's worth noting anything in the local folder takes priority over anything in the mods folder. And finally, I am obligated to inform you that there is a way to use mods to make DLC, pros rewards, and unreleased content available all for free. However, when we began our journey of mod creation back in November 2024, Saber Interactive, the developers of the game, only gave us one rule: be responsible. Unlocking these things is piracy, and no one in our community will support you or provide you with any help. We work hard to keep a good standing relationship with the developers of Space Marine 2 and maintain the trust with them we've built. Do not break it. It is currently 2:07 a.m. on Christmas morning. I am tired out of my mind, but that is the end of the entire video. To those of you who are keen enough to notice, this video took a very, very long time to make. I tried to cover as much as I could, and I even learned some new stuff specifically so I could include it in this video. Making videos like this to teach people and spread the knowledge farther than just a few dozen people is super important to me. And if you'd like to support me in doing so, you can subscribe to the channel or donate to me on Ko-Fi. These seemingly small things give me a lot of energy to continue to create videos in general, not just these tutorial ones. As one final thing, I want to let you know that if you need something clarified or restated in more detail, you can always leave a comment on the video or find me on Discord. Please have a very happy brand new year. If you or someone else you know is interested in making mods for Space Marine 2, you have two options. One is to rummage around in the files for days on end with no guidance on what to do, just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And the other, which is the way I would highly recommend, is to join the Space Marine 2 modding Discord server. By this time in the game's lifetime, there are hundreds of mod creators just like myself ready and willing to help you learn and create your own mods to bring your creativity to life. It's 100% free advice and an incredible starting point if you're interested in modding, even if it's not for Space Marine 2. And honestly, if you've watched till now, then you're clearly interested, so there'll be a link in the description below to the server where you can find me, the creators of Astartes Overhaul, and even chat to the game developers. And you know what? I can't wait to see you there.